Hello, my name is Emma. Welcome back to my channel. I talk about craft-related drama on here, and today we're going to be talking about Ravelry. Ravelry. This is part 2 of my deep dive into Ravelry's history. If for some reason you haven't seen part 1 yet, then definitely go watch that one first and then come back to this video. There's just a lot of fun things to learn about Ravelry's history in that video, and then you'll learn about all of the controversies up to 2020. If you're going to allow free speech, shouldn't all speech be acceptable? You know, they're clearly being willfully ignorant, and that's the kind of people that we're dealing with here.
I actually didn't realize it was Pride Month because I don't mark that on my calendar.
But a really basic overview of what I covered in that video, if for some reason you refuse to go watch that one, Ravelry is a knitting website with 9 million users. It primarily functions as a pattern database and a social hub for crocheters and knitters. Ravelry has received a fair amount of backlash in the past due to their handling of political posts and their treatment, aka banning, of conservative users on the site. That's really all I have to say about that. Today we're primarily going to cover the website redesign that led to migraines and seizures. Then I'll end the video by briefly talking about Cassidy's NFT Manifesto and the controversy surrounding Ravelry's Pride landing page. And yes, there will be a quiz at the end. I'm not even kidding. People did not do a great job on the last quiz, and I will admit I did make it very hard. I only know a few people that got 100%. But pay attention for this one. If anyone gets 100% on their quiz, you'll get a prize, a gold star, a kiss on the forehead, glory. I don't know. It's just for fun. It's for fun. You can take it if you want. You don't have to. I don't care. Take it if you want. Take it if you don't. Take it if you don't want. Do you guys smell that? What's that smell? Oh, it must be today's sponsor, Scentbird. Scentbird is a fragrance subscription service that lets you try out a new designer fragrance every month for just $17. They send you 3 fragrances, and with each one you get a 30-day supply. Scentbird also carries designer brands like Prada, Gucci, and Versace. Here are the fragrances they sent me so that I can smell delicious. Grace de Monaco's Ambre Sereine with notes of pink berry and mimosa, plus layers of bergamot, orange blossom, and lavender. This is it locked, open, and spray. Delicious. And if I want to see what's inside, then I can take it out and it has the little label on it. The next one they sent me was the Boho Boko Vanilla Black Pepper. Ooh, ah. This one has scents of vanilla with hints of nutmeg, black pepper, orange blossom, and cedarwood. And there's even little cards that come with the perfume to tell you more about the scent. Listen to the last line of this one. Enveloped in this captivating perfume, life's artistry unfolds. Each note a dance of longing, sweetness, and delight. Beautiful. You guys could smell these through the screen. They smell amazing. I'm pretty indecisive, so I like the idea of being able to try out a few different scents depending on my mood and the time of year, you know? So yeah, try a few out, find one you like, and then cancel at any time. Click the link in my description or use code INTHEMOMENT to get 55% off your first month at Scentbird. Thank you to Scentbird for sponsoring this video. Now let's talk about the Ravelry redesign. Despite the widespread nature of the Trump ban, I would say that Ravelry's biggest controversy to date was over their website rebrand in 2020. While it's very common for users to dislike rebrands, Ravelry's redesign was not as simple as people just not liking the aesthetics or the colors they chose or anything like that, although people didn't love those either. This penchant that people have for not liking redesigns is explained in part by the endowment effect, which Angela Lashbrook in her article Why Everyone Always Hates Redesigns Even When They're Good says, people prefer what they already have regardless of the benefit they may gain from adopting something new because they're afraid of what they might lose. People don't like change. But Ravelry's rebrand wasn't exactly that. When the new site launched, it triggered migraines and seizures in users, both in people who had a history of photosensitive epilepsy and those who had no prior experiences like this. And the general controversy lies in the way that Ravelry's team responded to learning about these effects. If you've watched at least one of the videos on my channel about the fiber arts community, then you'll know that this community takes a few things very seriously. Community, inclusion, and accessibility. And of course, yarn. And Ravelry's gross mishandling of the criticism they received from this redesign exists in direct opposition from all 3 of these previous points. So what actually happened with this rebrand? In 2019, Ravelry hired product designer Livia Nelson to revamp the site. I looked into Livia's previous work a little bit to see if what she had done before would explain at all how she approached redesigning the site. Interestingly, her previous position was the director of user experience at a digital marketing agency. In this position, she educated on the importance of user research wireframing and user testing. If you know where this story goes, then you'll already see the irony in this, and if not, remember this, you'll see how ironic this is later on. Also, a bit of a side note, but on her website, she uses the number 10 million users on Ravelry, but this is the first time I've seen this number mentioned anywhere. All of my previous research says 9 million. It's possible that they've updated the stats to say 10 million, but I don't know, I feel like I would have seen that somewhere else. Not super relevant, but interesting. I also looked into her schooling credentials, though I will be the first to admit that a higher education alone does not determine what someone's abilities are or their abilities in that area. So her credentials are a Bachelor of Arts in English, German Language, and Creative Writing, and a 1-year continuing education course in graphic design to supplement her self-taught skills. I bring this all up not to immediately discredit her. Personally, I have a lot of self-taught skills, and if you looked at my LinkedIn, which please don't, you would see that it is woefully bare because I just don't have it in me to update another social media site, especially not one that has to do with like my professional job experience and skills. And that's fine because my current job is YouTuber on YouTube.com. But let's say I was looking for a job in the field that I studied in, then I would certainly update my LinkedIn with all of my relevant experience and all of my relevant skills. And I happen to know that Nelson is looking for a job. 2 months ago, she posted that she was looking for work on LinkedIn. And I do just find it interesting that a website like Ravelry that is relying on her position so strongly, it's a very small team, 4 or 5 people, that they would hire someone with so little experience in the field. But enough of that, we're just looking into some of the reasons why this may have gone astray. According to a Ravelry post on June 19th, the story of the new look, Livia and the Ravelry team spent thousands of hours over 14 months in order to revamp the site. And what did Nelson do over these thousands of hours? Back to her LinkedIn site for a second. She built and documented design system from scratch, resulting in modernized device responsiveness, improved accessibility, and faster shipping of new features, redesigned complex database features, overhauled procedure for soliciting, collecting, and prioritizing user feedback from 10 million users, rebranded the site, including a new logo, color scheme, typography, and commissioned artwork for broader and more modern brand appeal that led to increased user retention. She also designed all social, marketing, and merch graphics. And then after creating all of those visual updates, she says that Cassidy went in and individually reskinned all of the pages on the site. The simplest way that I can understand reskinning is that it's kind of just like a filter over existing HTML on a website where you just take a new logo and you put that in place of where the old logo used to be. So the structure is very much the same, it's just aesthetically looks a little different. Interestingly, they mentioned several times in the Story of the New Look blog post that Cassidy and Jessica wanted to move Ravelry away from the gendered colors of the original design, those being pink and green, which is fair, I guess. I love gender neutral things. But, and maybe I'm being nitpicky here, I don't find their old logo to be more gendered than the new logo. Like, I truly would have never thought, oh, that looks too girly, it's green and pink. And I find it especially strange compared to their new logo, which is this lovely salmon color. I don't think color is inherently gendered, and this is just my opinion, but this is just as feminine of a color choice as the previous one. They were going for a more polished color palette. They landed on this sage green, salmon, teal, bright yellow, and navy blue that just doesn't scream sleek or polished to me. I am being picky. I'm being critical, and I like to be critical of things sometimes, and that's okay. It's just my opinion. I have a lot of opinions about what colors look good together and the moods that they elicit. And it's fine for you to have opinions too. It's fine for you to like this combination of colors. This aspect of the redesign is totally a matter of personal taste. I do think the new illustrations and icons that came with the rebrand are really cute additions to the site. These were done by artists Sarah Bicknell, Kirk Wallace, and Danielle Chuatico. Due to the nature of the complaints about the site, which we'll get into, I won't be including too many screenshots of the website redesign in this segment of the video. I'll be keeping screenshots to a minimum as much as I can, and I'll give a verbal warning if there's anything from the redesign that I do want to show you, so you can skip ahead or look away. But if you're really concerned, then maybe just don't watch this video, maybe just listen to it. I don't know. I don't want to be responsible for anybody having any sort of adverse effects to it. I do think still images of the site are less of a problem than like scrolling and moving images and actually like being on the site. But that being said, I do want to make sure that you're looking out for yourself and that this video does not cause any harm in that way. If you do want to see side-by-side images of the redesign, then I have linked a compilation post that someone put together with pictures side by side. If you do have a history of photosensitivity, migraines, epilepsy, anything like that, then maybe don't click the link and definitely proceed with caution with this video. But like I said, I will be trying to show minimal screenshots from Ravelry as much as I can. If you do go and look at these images side by side, you'll see that while there are definitely changes that make the site look worse and less accessible, there really weren't that many changes. When I first heard about the redesign stuff, I had a few assumptions based on my understanding of what the site looks like today. First, I thought that the redesign must have happened years ago. Like, I know it did happen years ago, but I thought like years ago. And that the current version I was seeing in 2022 must have been redesigned in like 2015, or that there had been so much backlash after the redesign that they ended up just going back to the old one completely. And that the version that I spent hours and hours and hours reading on for the Mystical Creations yarn video had to be the old version, right? Like, there's no way that was the new version, that was the update. Yeah, no, it was. So yeah, I agree with the sentiment of this Reddit user. The theme I'm seeing is the way it was before is perfect, and not you didn't change it enough, when the way it was before looks straight out of original AOL. Again, just my opinion, and I think it's important, again, to emphasize that this redesign rebrand was really just a reskinning. It was mostly just aesthetic changes and not functional big changes to the site. So, on June 16th, 2020, Ravelry announced the updated user interface. In this initial announcement post, the Ravelry team links 2 different threads in one of their Big 6 forums for the love of Ravelry. First, there was a thread for people to voice their feelings about the change, and there was a second one to report any bugs or problems that people had with the site. In the bugs thread, there were a lot of people expressing their excitement about the rebranding and commenting on things that they liked about the site, which is very expressly not what this forum was for, although it was very sweet to read. New Rav warning, skip ahead to this timestamp if you don't want to see it. Mixed in with these comments were people asking where they could find certain tabs or change preferences. Notably, the Friends tab had just moved somewhere where nobody could find it, which was really nice that people like immediately getting back on there were like, oh no, where are my friends? I need to find my friends. Other initial feedback included, way too white. Hate it, hate it, hate it. Difficult to read and ugly. Go back, go back, go back. What were you thinking when you made these changes? Go back, go back, go back. And pretty quickly, in post 47 of the thread, they started receiving some user feedback over accessibility concerns. One user, who said that they were a senior web developer, ran a quick test on Chrome's Lightbox of the patterns page, and the site received a score of 68 out of 100. Cassidy responded to this post and said, Ravelry is a huge site. This was just a reskin of the existing code. The score has not gone down at all. And yes, there are things we can improve. She then says, also, I think you need to look deeper than the Lightbox score to see what the issues are. Which is fair, I think. To spend years on something and then have someone immediately jump in with a quick test and try to disprove all your work, it's fair to respond like that. But this kind of just sets a precedent for how Cassidy responds to most, if not all, of the feedback on the site. More on that later. New Rav warning, skip ahead to this timestamp if you don't want to see it. In the feelings thread, they appear to have moderated, and by moderated I mean deleted, the first few days of comments. The first comments that I see are from June 18th, 2020, and not from June 16th. At this point, people who started criticizing the changes were being accused of just not liking it and not liking Ravelry. Within a few days, Ravelry offered an option to toggle back to the old design, which they called Classic Rav. Shortly after the feedback started pouring in on these 2 threads, they released 2 different surveys. The first was a general feedback form. Kathleen from Whip Insanity documents some of the reasons why these surveys, which are now inaccessible to me and that I can't find on the Wayback Machine, were problematic ways to collect feedback. The first one, the feedback form, was not anonymous. According to Liz Cork, a Scottish knitwear designer, the survey had GDPR, General Data Protection Requirement, problems. One user, Victoria Knits, later reported these problems to the Information Commissioner's Office, or the ICO, which is the office that handles investigations of GDPR breaches, and stated in a tweet that in response to her complaint, Ravelry just didn't comply and didn't respond to the ICO. According to Whip Insanity's summary blog post, the forum asked users whether they had a disability that affects how they use the internet. The form did contain a blurb stating that this information would only be used internally and eventually destroyed, but this was only added later on. So they were just asking for personal medical information from users, and none of it was anonymous. The second survey, a readability form, which was published later, was 35 pages long. The form also contained many screenshots from the new Rav design, which meant that people who were affected by the new design wouldn't be able to fully participate in the survey, which kind of defeats the purpose of gathering feedback from them, right? Let's take a quick break from the timeline to talk about a delicate and controversial response to this redesign, that the symptoms were all the cause of mass hysteria. On July 6, 2020, Robert Bartholomew, a sociologist who specialized in mass hysteria, published an article in Psychology Today titled, "A Popular Website is Reportedly Making People Sick." In this article, he concludes that it is likely that the symptoms that people are experiencing from Ravelry are just a form of MPI, or mass psychogenic illness. This used to be referred to as mass hysteria until 1980, when the DSM removed this term from its manual. In the following section, I'll be using the term mass hysteria and mass psychogenic illness interchangeably depending on the source that I'm referring to and what terms they use. But it is generally agreed by professionals that mass psychogenic illness is the more appropriate term to use these days. So in Bartholomew's article, he lists symptoms that users submitted as complaints: dizziness, nausea, visual disturbances, eye pain, vertigo, fatigue, difficulty concentrating, confusion, numbness, muscle spasms, anxiety, depression, and vomiting. And then he says, it appears to be an ordinary website. There are no flashing lights or obvious features that should cause health issues. That a small number of people self-report having seizure does not prove that it was triggered by the site. Some users say that just viewing a link to the website or a screenshot of the site is making them unwell, and some visitors say that they have fallen ill immediately upon looking at the site. He then goes on to say that there's no evidence that the website is what's making people feel like this. He posits that the explanation is people are just experiencing a mass psychogenic illness. He likens the symptoms that Ravelry users have reported to complaints of 5G and telephones, with heavy undertones that people just don't like change and that they don't like updates to their technology. Bartholomew says, studies that assess expectations prior to being exposed to sham or real electromagnetic fields suggest that a person's expectations play a key role in determining whether symptoms develop or not. If people expect to have symptoms, they are much more likely to have them. Similarly, David Gibson, the president of Propeller Media Works, a web development company that specializes in digital accessibility issues, told The New Yorker that Ravelry doesn't seem to be doing too badly on the accessibility front. In this statement, he says that while Ravelry could be doing better and is missing some of the basic tenets for accessibility, like alt tags for screen readers, they're not doing much worse than other popular websites. In another article by Bartholomew on the University of Auckland website, the website that's making people sick, not the Auckland website, that's not the one making the people sick. The title of the article is the website that's making people sick, Ravelry. He ends the article by suggesting that technology has increased our collective vulnerability to mass hysteria, and concludes with this sentence: Hysteria illness is an idea, and the internet is the vector. What this outbreak illustrates is the power of the web and the human imagination in an age that is filled with suspicion, ignorance, and fear. The release of Bartholomew's articles and Gibson's comments resulted in an uproar from the knitting community, who felt that their very real symptoms and concerns were just being downplayed. understandably. This response from Ravelers is not surprising to me. Mass hysteria has a history of being weaponized against women, lest we forget the Salem witch trials and the history of women being hospitalized due to their diagnosed hysteria. Bartholomew's research interests are broad, ranging from the history of psychiatry and postpartum psychosis, to New England and Malaysian folklore and the history of witchcraft, to cryptozoology, the social history of the Loch Ness Monster, and of course, mass psychogenic illness. He's written numerous articles since 1989 with titles like Clown Panic, Sightings of Mysterious Clowns Rattled Nerves in South Carolina, 2016, Alligators in the Sewers, 2016. Massachusetts Mass Hysteria Cover-Up, 2016. Bigfoot, Man, Myth, or Monster, 2008. Of Witch Hunts and Chili Dogs, 2005. Pokemon Contagion, Photosensitive Epilepsy or Mass Psychogenic Illness, 2001. He's written over 30 articles in Psychology Today on topics, again, ranging from the COVID vaccine to the Havana Syndrome to fidget spinners and the man who thought he was a cat. An article that jumped out to me was Why Females Are Prone to Mass Hysteria. And while the title really gives me a bad taste in my mouth, what he seems to be trying to say is that mass hysteria, primarily occurring in women, is because of gendered expectations and socializations that they are under, not because of any genetic disposition that they have. He also notes that these stats may be skewed because women do tend to seek care more frequently. In his research of over 2,000 cases of mass psychogenic illness, 99% of the time, the most affected groups of people are women. He says that while some may argue that it is in a woman's nature to be more prone to hysteria, his stance as a sociologist is that this comes from social and cultural factors, such as which jobs women are drawn to and how they're taught to deal with stress. In another article about Cuba's sonic attacks and their connections to mass hysteria, Bartholomew emphasizes that anyone experiencing symptoms due to MPI are not hypochondriacs and they are not all making it up. It is a real condition with real symptoms. It could happen to anybody. My takeaway after reading several of Bartholomew's articles is that he does seem to have good intentions when writing about and researching MPI, especially when it comes to a historical lens. However, the tone with which he writes is very academic and philosophical and comes off as a bit off-putting sometimes. I believe that a deeper look at his writings shows that the article about Ravelry in Psychology Today was not meant to invalidate people's experiences, but is looking into offering an explanation for why this website that looks like just any other website would cause so many problems. But on the other hand, disabled people are used to being gaslit and having their problems dismissed. When some sociologist wants to theorize about these symptoms that they're having and how maybe it's caused by mass psychogenic illness or mass hysteria, it's understandable that people are going to push back on that and not take his readings very seriously. That's sort of just my interpretation on this article. I've seen a lot of people say that this article was put out sort of as a way to invalidate what they were actually experiencing, but from my understanding of it, that's not what his intention was. Obviously, intention isn't everything, but those are just my thoughts on the topic. Definitely let me know if you had any other reactions to reading his writing, especially if you read this article at the time that it was published. Moving on to Ravelry's continued response to this mess and what really solidified people's opinions about the site. So yeah, what were the accessibility problems? Users reported eye strain, migraines, nausea, seizures, and vomiting. For some, these symptoms began after simply viewing a page. Tanya Richter reported a migraine lasting 90 days. They mentioned that they've gone to various doctors and all of them have advised them to stop using Ravelry. Rach_Wid, a user diagnosed with epilepsy, said that after the redesign, they noticed that they felt dizzy and wavy and vulnerable. Accessibility for website design is determined by the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, or the WCAG. According to the accessibility expert that I consulted with for this section of the video, Jen DeMesquita, this list is not a legal document, but it does have a legal impact. It also is not exhaustive, as there are things that do affect accessibility that are not covered by these guidelines. Jen outlined the main accessibility concerns of Ravelry that mostly boil down to 3 different categories: unstoppable animations, eye strain and migraines, and missing alt text. The unstoppable animations that Ravelry had on their login page are in direct violation of WCAG Success Criteria 2.2.2, pause, stop, hide, which requires that a user must be able to pause, stop, or hide any animation that lasts over 5 seconds alongside other content on the page. Ravelry's login page had a picture of hot air balloons with Bob the dog inside of them that moved. In the Wayback Machine, the animation isn't playing, but based on the reports at the time, this animation was the problem. In Jen's email to me, she said, depending on how fast they moved, this could have been enough to cause seizures in some people. Depending on how it looked, this could have been a violation of WCAG 2.3.1, 3 flashes or below threshold, which is in place to reduce the chance of something causing seizures. This requires that if there is flashing content, it needs to be 3 flashes or less per second. Regarding the eye strains and migraines that people reported, Jen says that the color contrast and the luminance or difference in lightness between the colors determines how easy it is for people, especially those with color blindness and low vision, to make out text. Jen says, the WCAG specifies contrast minimums to make sure the 2 colors are discernible. However, the WCAG has nothing about contrast maximums. Having very high contrast causes eye strain in some people, which I believe is a factor here. It is a very light background with very dark text. She says that in this case, the eye strain was likely caused by the very high contrast of the colors chosen and vibrating color combinations that occur when 2 very bright colors are next to each other. Jen also said, all these factors together are what I think caused the eye strain here. The high contrast and vibrating color combinations along with the pointed borders of the buttons, boxes, and drop shadows. None of these are things that the WCAG would have covered, so it would have been harder to detect ahead of time, although, albeit some testers have come out saying that they did report these same issues in the testing process. And finally, alt text. Screen readers and other forms of assistive technology use alt text to see images. And according to Jen, this is the first thing in the WCAG 1.1.1, non-text content. She says that her educated guess is that the issues were around alt text for user-uploaded images. There have been similar issues on Twitter and Instagram in the past. No way for users to include alt text with their images, or if there is, it is not required, so people can easily forget to add it. Other accessibility problems were well documented by some of the other active voices online around this time. Kathleen Sperling, Whip Insanity, is a digital marketing business analyst. In a Twitter thread, she states that the issues in the rebrand were so egregious that they never should have made it to production if accessibility was, in fact, part of consideration from the get-go. In a tweet, she says, a company whose site hasn't been majorly overhauled since 2007 and which now plans to spend time and resources to redesign it from scratch in 2020 must, I can't stress this enough, start with accessibility principles built into the new system. It should be the driver for everything. In response to these accessibility concerns, on July 2nd, the Epilepsy Foundation of America tweeted saying, members of our epilepsy community have expressed concerns about content on knitting and crocheting community Ravelry. From what we understand, Ravelry recently made changes to their user interface, which, according to some users, may be affecting people with photosensitivity. They issue this warning to the community, and especially to those diagnosed with photosensitive epilepsy, to be wary of the website. In this thread, they also say that they reached out to Ravelry with their concerns. On June 26th, Mary Heather posted on Ravelry's blog with an article titled, A New Look, a Check-In. Today we want to talk about readability and web accessibility, some site news and announcements, post-launch updates and fixes, and a new feature for Pride. Great, they're going to address the problems, right? Kind of. She says that they are sorry that new Rav isn't working for some users, and that they're conducting a readability survey to work out what adjustments need to be made. She says there is no magic bullet for designing websites to accommodate the wide range of vestibular disorders and visual needs. Okay. True, but this is kind of the only reference in this whole blog post about the symptoms that people are experiencing, and it's just sort of written off as, we're trying, it's just hard.
Sorry.
She reports that Ravelry has been tracking their Lighthouse accessibility score since May, and that they have boosted their score by 23 points out of 100 since the launch day. This is good, this is great. But again, they don't really address the accessibility concerns brought forth by many of their users. If the score is boosted by 23 points, that doesn't necessarily mean anything for someone if they're still having problems looking at the site. She then says that since launching their rebrand, signups have been up 103%, which was later corrected, saying, we forgot that signups were temporarily closed on June 23rd last year. And you know why they were closed, because of all the Trump ban stuff. After factoring that in, the number is a 73% increase in signups and not 103%. She then goes on to list some of the updates that the site has made since the launch. The login screen animation was set to still with an option to play if users wanted, which is good. They changed the button formatting and lines in the forums for a better reading experience, also good. They added an option to toggle on and off the drop shadows on the website and an option to choose between Inter or Helvetica fonts on the site. They improved advanced search for screen readers, which is rather vague, but sounds good. They added a bug report system in the drop-down menu and a new feedback form. And finally, they added the option to toggle back to the classic Ravelry site. In the week or so since they had launched that feature, they said that 92% of active users are using the new Ravelry site. And it's here that they also announced that this toggle option will only be available for the next 6 months. The thing about this option, though, is that you have to go into the new Rav login page and the new Rav design before you can toggle into classic Ravelry. So if someone had a migraine after going onto the site, they're probably not going to be using the site anymore, which is then skewing their data of like, yeah, people that are using the site are more likely to just be using the new update because people that want to toggle to classic Ravelry can't even get there because they can't go through all of those steps first. At the end of the article, they announced that for Pride, you can choose a Pride flag to fly on your Ravelry profile page, which is cute, but they use screenshots from new Rav with the drop shadows and the high contrast colors in this blog post. So if someone were reading this, trying to get updates on if they could go back to the site again, they would see these screenshots with no warning, which kind of defeats the purpose of all these options to toggle things on and off. Most of the blogs that I read that were posted around this time report that while emails containing bug reports often received prompt responses, most, if not all, of the emails relating to accessibility either received no response or pretty gaslighty responses, which I will share soon. One user who experienced symptoms due to the rebrand, KTB38, KDB, put up a poll on her Instagram stories asking about revenue and if people's sales went down. Out of the over 100 designers that responded, 75% answered that their sales did in fact go down after the rebrand and that they were seeing less traffic. Shortly after Katie posted about the results of this survey, Cassidy tweeted, "There is a person on Instagram who has been spreading straight up lies about Ravelry non-stop since we updated the design. The most recent one is that pattern sales are down. No. This has been the best July ever." Katie posted a screenshot of this now deleted tweet from Cassidy's now deleted Twitter account with the caption, "Yesterday I posted this behind a pretty flower because it upset me so much I didn't want it on my grid. Because I felt ashamed and embarrassed for being called a liar by someone I once admired and respected. I'm just angry and furious now. Also hurt beyond words. I never lied. I relayed stories and information given to me. I was reporting what was happening. I have never tagged or attacked any of the staff of Ravelry, yet they attacked me." Following this tweet, Cassidy sent some more emails. Here's a July 28th email from Cassidy to user Lindsay Silvered Griffin. "Hi, Lindsay. Hi, Lindsay. Ravelry's updated design does not cause seizures, migraines, or other medical issues. The Epilepsy Foundation did not find any problems with Ravelry." Okay, yes, they did. 26 days prior, the Epilepsy Foundation did, in fact, issue a warning on Twitter that Ravelry may pose a problem to users with photosensitivity. But anyway, back to the email. "Angry users started a letter-writing campaign, and the foundation published their warning without any verification or research, as appears to be their policy. We have not found any experts, including medical doctors who specialize in this area, who have identified any problems with Ravelry. We have found zero evidence that there is anything about the new design that causes migraines or seizures. I would like people to consider their sources before spreading false information. Cassidy." Okay, so if you're someone who has experienced migraines or seizures from this rebrand and then you see an email like that, it's like, what other evidence do you need? I'm telling you I had a migraine. Over the next few days, others reported receiving similar emails. Kingdom of Wench received an email signed from Cassidy saying, "Ravelry's updated design is the most accessible version of Ravelry ever, and it does not cause seizures, migraines, or other medical issues." KTB38 received an email with similar chunks of text as Kingdom of Wench and Lindsay's emails, but hers said, "The Epilepsy Foundation did not call out Ravelry. Angry users started a letter-writing campaign, and the foundation published their warning based on those letters without any verification or research, as appears to be their policy. A medical doctor who specializes in migraines and seizures, has said that he does not believe that Ravelry is causing seizures or migraines. So, okay, let's say that Cassidy and the team at Ravelry did conduct an investigation and consult medical professionals following the feedback they received. It would make sense for them then to publish a report or list the names of the doctors and experts who were saying that the website was fine so that people could go see what they had to say or confirm the validity of these conclusions. I can imagine it was a very stressful time for them, but these responses indicate immediate hostility to people who had simply expressed concerns due to their own symptoms or the accessibility concerns of others. So naturally, a few days later, on July 30th, Cassidy's wife and co-founder Jessica released a very long letter to the community, which I will read in part. Dear Ravelry community, I first would like to apologize for any stress and uncertainty that the Ravelry site redesign has caused in what is already a difficult year. I am sorry that our actions or inactions have made anyone in the community feel unheard. We acknowledge that our responses up to this point have been insufficient. I hope that people will find joy on Ravelry again, and please know we are working hard toward this goal. In the meantime, I thought that it might be useful to have some common questions answered by me today. So the first question is, why has this response taken so long? She explains that there has been a delay because they've been spending time going through all the feedback in the forums, and that from now on, they will be publishing information about the changes in their blog, which, by the way, is separate from Ravelry, the site, and does not seem to have the same design and accessibility problems. Second question, why has the community not heard from Cassidy on Ravelry threads and Twitter? Why are we turning off Instagram comments and forum threads? Oh yeah, they were turning off Instagram comments and Facebook comments and anywhere basically that people were complaining about the accessibility issues. Jessica goes on to say that they have locked the For Love of Ravelry thread because they're just getting too much feedback and having too many issues. Okay, fine, fair, I guess, but if you're having this many problems, maybe you should have tested more before you released the site. But okay.
Yeah, okay.
She says, it is not because Cassidy and I and our team don't care about the community. We understand that our choice to limit the redesign feedback channels to email only has frustrated folks and is different from how we have collaborated about changes in the past. However, email has proved to be the only way that we can actually take in and track the flood of input and be able to do the real work of improving the site. Another quick way that Ravelers will be able to give feedback very soon is the new beta testing feature that we will be launching. It will allow us to test new additions and changes to the site in a more organized way. And here's an important part. Remember all of those tweets and emails that were signed by Cassidy that we looked through earlier? Jessica says, with regards to the tweets and emails sent by Cassidy, we would like to make clear they do not reflect the opinions and professional intentions of the Ravelry team or the way we think about what people are experiencing. We have not been as aware as we should that these messages are being sent. Cassidy was not in a state to be talking with people. Though she does understand that this is no excuse and that the emails that she wrote were hurtful, she is ashamed and sincerely sorry. It will take a period of adjustment, but in the future, Cassidy's role will be focused on technical work. She no longer has access to the customer service emails, and her Ravelry mail is disabled. So they essentially throw Cassidy under the bus in attempts to clear Ravelry's name. And what I'm hearing here is just, oh, we're so busy, there's so much feedback, we can't possibly get to it all. When that's part of the problem, right? Like, if you're having so much feedback, consider why the feedback is coming in and maybe listen to what people are saying. Next question, why didn't we just go back to classic Ravelry as the default? She says a lot here, but what it boils down to is they're working on searching for a web accessibility consultant, something that they definitely should have done before 1 entire month and a half after launching a massive rebrand that was 14 months in the making. They are continuing to research, and classic Ravelry is still available with a toggle option. It's just really not enough. The penultimate question addresses the suggestion that they should just hire more people if it's so stressful, and to that Jessica says, well, our budget's just really tight and there's just no way to make money. She says, though we have had the opportunity, we have not taken outside venture capital money to grow the business. Investors always have motivation to profit, and we are dedicated to keeping our community's values first. We have no plans to sell Ravelry, and we consider Ravelry to be a utility for the yarn community that we want to continue in the future. So while adding additional full-time staff members is an ongoing discussion, it's not something we can currently act on, which is also kind of fair, but in this case, people were offering to donate to hiring an accessibility expert, and a community of 9 million people offering to donate even a small amount would have certainly covered expenses for a while. Even optional monthly membership fees and like a patron-based system, Others online had offered to do audits for free. Jumping right to, oh, we don't want to have investors, ignores the many small steps available in between making no money, or like what they're making now, which is probably just enough to break even, and taking venture capital money. And finally, the letter ends with what comes next. She says, we're working on more customizations based on survey results. We're confident that the forthcoming updates based on this data will be truly helpful to people who are having issues with the high contrast aspects of the design. We will continue to consult outside accessibility experts as well. I know that we have made mistakes, and I am so sorry that we've made anyone feel unwelcome on Ravelry since June. We are working hard every day to improve and make Ravelry as accessible and useful as it can be. I hope that the ability to use this site in its familiar classic mode, along with ongoing updates and improvements to the new design, will help folks to enjoy Ravelry and gain trust in us again. Jessica, for the Ravelry team, Cassidy, Mary Heather, Sarah, Livia, and Christina. For most Ravelry users at the time, especially those who were experiencing symptoms, this just was not enough. Also in July, a group of designers released an open letter addressed to Ravelry with requests for changes. The letter began by saying, "We are all pattern designers who use or have used Ravelry. We are so grateful for the community you have helped us build, for the opportunities Ravelry has given us. What we need to say, we say with love and respect, and we hope you will hear us. We wouldn't ask if we didn't care. We are concerned about how recent changes to the website's interface have been handled. We're concerned about how these changes have impacted our customers and feel we must speak up on their behalf. We're concerned about the impact this may have on our industry as a whole. Additionally, some of us have been physically harmed." This letter, written by Sarah M. Goodman, outlined 4 specific requests that the designers had following Ravelry's response or lack thereof. The first was for Ravelry to hire a consultant for feedback on web accessibility. In the letter, they say that user surveys are not only not an adequate form of feedback for issues this pervasive, but also that the surveys themselves were on the new Rav site with screenshots of the site that would be completely inaccessible to anyone who is suffering from the symptoms. Second, to set classic Ravelry as the default mode to mitigate further harm. Third, that changes and updates to the new version should also be the default option. And finally, they ask for a genuine apology to the community. They say, stop taking this personally, stop making excuses, and stop using sales and sign-up statistics to justify the harm this has caused for some of your users. We feel we must speak up for them and for ourselves. We value true inclusivity. Anyone who signed this letter was given the chance to include a brief note about why they were signing. Here are what a few of the signees had to say. Lori of Redesign says that their business is suffering, but the hardest part of not being able to use Ravelry is being isolated from their online community in this already isolated time. They go on to say, it pains me to think that Ravelry cares more about their color scheme and icons than my physical and mental health. Another signer, Sheena Bina, says, it could have been so easy to make this right. Listen to those who are actually trying to help you make your product viable. Some people who signed this letter reference being a part of the Ravelry community since its early days, like Selena from Red and the Wolf Designs, who expresses their disappointment at how Ravelry claimed to be inclusive, but because of this recent development, for the first time ever, I want to move away from it. Aoba Ni says simply, stop hurting people. Just stop hurting people. And a final comment I want to highlight is from Kathleen Sperling, Whip Insanity, who I've been referencing this whole video. She cites her main complaints as Ravelry's attempt to downplay the negative outcomes of the redesign, through a total lack of acknowledgement of the physical harm done, misleading statistics, draconian shutdown, and discussion of the problems, and the slander of a user who reported on a survey about the impact of the rebrand on designers, which was the KDB incident with Cassidy's tweet. This letter was sent to Ravelry at the beginning of August, and on the 5th, Sarah Goodwin, the primary author of the letter, received a response. It read, "Thank you for writing with your concerns and care. I shared your letter with Jessica and we discussed it this morning. We hope that Jessica's letter last week addressed these concerns and helped share our thoughts behind our decisions and our next steps. We will be following up with continued updates on our blog and look forward to continuing this work. Best regards, Mary Heather and Jessica." So yeah, why does this all matter? Well, I would argue that accessibility is important and that everybody should have access to online spaces, especially if it's a place that people had access to before. And especially if your website places inclusion at the very front and center of their mission statement. There were some people who pushed back on criticism of the site and said, hey, if you don't like it, just leave already. And while I do think there is maybe a small argument to be made that yes, it's a free site and, you know, you're not paying for it, so they don't have to accommodate you, I guess. I think this just gets into kind of bad territory with an underlying tone of, sorry, we don't care about accessibility. You don't have a right to be on the platform. Also, in reality, Ravelry has a monopoly as this comprehensive knitting database for a reason. From the consumer side, many people have tried to go #off-Rav, but they report noticing the difference and missing out on patterns that are only published on Ravelry. And small designers rely on the traffic to their patterns that Ravelry provides. If you remember the spreadsheet from part 1, the top 0.9% of designers on the platform in 2019, which is 93 of the sellers, made $3,000 a month. Most of the people who sell on Ravelry are small designers, and sure, with the numbers that we saw in the spreadsheet, most of them are not making their sole income on Ravelry, but even if they were one of the sellers who was earning, say, $300 a month, that's still $300 less a month that these designers would be making if they had to go off of Ravelry. So what now? What happened with all of this? On March 31st, 2021, 6 months after the rebrand, Ravelry did take away the classic toggle option. Evanita EWM on Instagram organized a Ravelry boycott where people would not log into their accounts for a period of time to show Ravelry that people were not using their account. It was originally going to be a one-day protest, but they didn't want to plan a boycott for only April 1st for fear that people would think it was an April Fool's joke. It ended up being planned for about 3 days, but it officially extended to April 6th, and a lot of people left Ravelry kind of in perpetuity. In this time, people were encouraged to post on their own social media explaining why they were boycotting, and again, emphasizing the importance of accessibility. There did not appear to be any response from Ravelry to this boycott. In the years that followed, many users using the hashtag #OffRav to announce their departure from the site have removed their patterns for sale. While the website continues to slowly improve visual features and accessibility, for many, the website showed its true colors during this debacle, and it has turned them off from wanting to use the site at all, regardless of any future changes. And yeah, the worst part about all of this is that it's still kind of bad, it's still pretty clunky, but it's still a great knitting pattern database. Okay, and as promised, here's a little quick fire of 2 smaller controversies that I found while researching around for this. These are not going to be as in-depth of deep dives as the redesign part, just because there honestly wasn't that much to look at, but they were interesting and I wanted to share them with you. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is Cassidy's Manifesto. In May of 2021, Cassidy tweeted on the official Ravelry Twitter, "If you are a fiber artist who has interest or experience in decentralization, please take a look at the manifesto in my Rav profile and get in touch if it lights you up. I know there must be folks out there and I'd like to make some connections." Okay?
Interesting.
In the manifesto, Cassidy says, "The community needs an independent, not-for-profit, decentralized, community-owned database of patterns, yarns, and their connections to projects. Ravelry should be just one of many interfaces to this API." She later says, "As the crypto ecosystem matures, might we be able to use NFTs to create ownership of digital patterns that is not tied to a platform?" Which, definitely seems like fixing something that isn't broken and proposing a solution that has a devastating environmental impact with a very volatile currency, but all right. I will say that this manifesto, Cassidy posting this, wasn't quite a controversy. It didn't really turn into drama, other than a few Reddit posts, blogs, and Instagram posts about it. People mostly seemed content to just read it and forget it. And honestly, the context of the manifesto is not supremely important, other than how Cassidy's prediction that NFTs would be the next big thing in knitting just didn't really age well. NFTs for knitting patterns are it's unnecessary. What I do think is interesting is that Cassidy used her position to put together this manifesto and put it out when Jessica had said in the letter previously that Cassidy would be kind of taking a step back from things and mostly working on the coding. This feels like a really big pitch proposal idea that she just put out there, hoping that someone would see it and respond to it and want to work with her further on it. This doesn't really feel like taking a step back to me. If you do want to learn more about this one, I would recommend a video made by friend of the channel, Carrie Craft Geek, where she breaks down what the manifesto means, she breaks down all the terms in it and all of that stuff. Kathleen of Whip Insanity's blog also has a great breakdown of the problems that she had with the manifesto, and Victoria Marchant knits as well. That's really all I have to say about it. It doesn't seem to have progressed any further past that, but thought that it was interesting and that I should bring it up. And let's end the video with a good old-fashioned case of homophobia. Not from Ravelry, but from some of its users. Especially in relation to the redesign, this controversy doesn't really hold the same weight in terms of the backlash. It reads a lot more like Tucker Carlson being mad that the green M&M was not wearing her sexy heels anymore because God forbid we make anthropomorphized candy less sexually appealing to Tucker Carlson. But anyway, on June 11th, 2021, the Ravelry blog posted an update about the Pride-themed art that was going to be on the website's landing page. The art that they included was by artist Archie Bongiovanni. Archie is a Minneapolis-based cartoonist and illustrator who released the graphic novel A Quick and Easy Guide to They/Them Pronouns and Grease Bats. In addition to this new art, the post announced that 30% of proceeds from Ravelry's pattern sales over the next 10 days would be donated to Take Action Minnesota, a charity that Archie chose the money to go to, the artist. An additional 10% would go to Cassidy and Jessica's local LGBTQ youth center. Here's a look at the art that was on the homepage. The community response to this was fairly varied, but from what I can see, the response fell into generally 3 main categories. The first category is what I would call people that didn't really care. People who saw it and said, oh yeah, it's Pride, cool, sounds good, I didn't really notice it. The second category is people that loved it and saw it and said, it's Pride, let's celebrate and normalize queerness and all of its different aspects, this is great. Thanks, Ravelry. And then the third category, people who hated it, which I will also separate into 2 different subcategories. Some people hated this because they hated the art style and the fact that the artist chosen was not a fiber artist. They didn't include any yarn or fiber art in the drawing. The artist was not a crafter. According to a tweet that they posted later, they were not even told that they should use yarn. So how were they supposed to know? A bigger chunk of this category of people that disliked it was people like our politically incorrect knitters. You know that I couldn't go the whole video without talking about something deplorable knitter said. So let's hear what she had to say about these things.
What part of this weird sexual stuff is appropriate for children?
Deplorable was upset that some of the images in this drawing depicted sex toys or sex acts and said that this was not appropriate for children. She also was upset that there were donations going to these LGBTQ youth centers, as this was something she did not agree with and did not want her money going to support these causes. Let's hear some more things she had to say about this.
I know that the whole point of all of this is to get rid of white men or to take them down. And
also, if you're an autistic white guy, you got plenty of struggles.
I don't know if this is true or not, but a lot of people are saying that they're trying to normalize, like, some lesbians kissing.
Right.
They're so busy worrying about what other people are doing.
All right, that's enough of that. Most of the backlash did come from some of the illustrations in the art that make overt or covert references to things that are sexual in nature. While I do think there are some legitimate criticisms to be made about choosing this particular piece of art to serve as the login page for your crafting website, there are plenty of other things to criticize Ravelry for than the gay agenda. As a certified gay person and someone that the politically incorrect knitters might describe as woke, I do kind of see a lot of this backlash is just coming down to people being upset that politics was brought into their knitting website once again. New Rav warning, skip ahead to this timestamp if you don't want to see it. Over the years, Ravelry has received criticism from so many different subsets of crafters. Trump supporters, anti-LGBTQ knitters, and disabled knitters, to name a few. You can't please everyone, but Ravelry seems to be doing a good job of not pleasing anyone. You may notice that I have left out another Ravelry-adjacent controversy in 2019 revolving around the hashtag diversenity. It's a pun on diversity with nitty at the end, and racism, and I did leave that out on purpose because I want to save that for its own video. Okay, it's quiz time! You all loved the quiz from the last video, so I know you've been studying and paying attention and really remembering everything I've said, right? I do kind of feel bad that last time I made it seem like it was going to be like a fun little quiz at the end with the answers being pretty easy, and then I made it really, really hard. So I'm sorry about that, but I am going to do it again. This one is also going to be hard. There are 20 possible points, and the point values will be up on the screen, so you can tally up how much you got and let me know in the comments what your score is. All right, first up. What was the name of the designer responsible for the Ravelry rebrand? Livia Nelson. Number 2. In Ravelry's history, how many times had it redesigned / rebranded the website prior to 2020? Your options are once, twice, 3 times, or never. And the correct answer is never. Number 3. What did Ravelry call their new design? New Rav. Number 4, what did Ravelry call their old design? Classic Rav. Number 5, what was the name of the forum in which Ravelry collected feedback from users after the redesign? For the Love of Ravelry. Number 6, for 3 points, what were 3 of the main accessibility problems with Ravelry's site? You get 1 point for each right answer. The 3 I'm looking for were unstoppable animations, contrast causing eye strain and migraines, and missing alt text, but if you said anything else that I mentioned in the video, then give yourself points for that as well. Number 7, what was the name of the organization that issued a warning on Twitter about Ravelry to members of their community? And the answer is the Epilepsy Foundation. Number 8, what was the name of the sociologist who wrote an article for Psychology Today about the symptoms Ravelers were experiencing? Robert Bartholomew. Number 9, in the context of Bartholomew's work, what does MPI stand for? Mass psychogenic illness. Number 10, each one of the following is the name of a real article written by Robert Bartholomew that I listed in the video, except A, Clown Panic, sightings of mysterious clowns rattles nerves in South Carolina. B, Bigfoot, man, myth, or monster. C, Nessie, a brief history of the Loch Ness Monster. D, of witch hunts and chili dogs. And the answer is C. Nessie, that's not a real article title, but he does have some articles about the Loch Ness Monster. Number 11, what did Cassidy propose in her 2021 manifesto as a way to create ownership of digital patterns that is not tied to a platform? The answer is knitting pattern NFTs, or NFTs. Either way, give yourself a point. Number 12, what is the name of the artist who designed the controversial Pride landing page in 2021? Archie Bongiovanni. 13, what hashtag gained popularity as a way for knitters to signal that they were leaving Ravelry? Hashtag offrav. And finally, for 3 points, fill in the blank from Cassidy's tweet to KDB. There is a person on Instagram who has been spreading blank about Ravelry nonstop since we updated the design. And the answer is straight up lies. There is a person on Instagram who has been spreading straight up lies about Ravelry nonstop since we updated the design. Let me know how you did in the comments. Also, if you like my pigeon vest, I just released the chart for it on my website so you can make a little pigeon tapestry. I made one. Don't look at the ends. I made one. If you want to make one too, it's on my website and it's only $5. Go get yourself one if you want to make a little pigeon. Okay. Into my final thoughts. And their final controversy starts today with me. I'm starting beef with Ravelry. Not really. It's just a joke. I'm just kidding. Please don't come for me, Cassidy and Jessica. It's just a joke. But there are some things I do want to say. There's something about this site that keeps bringing people back, despite the fact that it's hard to navigate and, quite frankly, doesn't always look great. While researching this video, the biggest thing that stood out to me is this. Jessica and Cassidy mention over and over that they had no idea that their idea would turn into the thing that it is and get so big. Now, I don't know how to code, and I don't pretend to know how to design a website, but I can imagine that at this point, things are so complicated that fixing all of the problems, whether aesthetic preferences or genuine accessibility issues, would be a complete nightmare. I do commend Cassidy for taking on the absolutely tremendous task of coding, redesigning, and updating a website used by 9 million knitters around the world, but I do think this is a moment where perhaps she could use some help. I'm not a business expert, I'm not a coder, I can't even conceptualize 70,000 people, thanks for watching, much less 9 million, but I don't know anything. I'm just a person on the internet saying my opinion, and my opinion is that something has to change. It just can't be sustainable for a website to continue like this. Where does the money they make go, and how can it be used to improve the platform more for all of the people that want to love and use it? I think because they have such a monopoly on the knitting world and their database is so extensive, people have less of an incentive to ask for change and to ask for it quickly, but I would love to see this site improve and get up to the 2023 standards that we've come to expect today of websites. Perhaps this is a big ask. In fact, I know it is. Retroactively fixing things is hard. There are definitely aspects of the site that work well and are connecting people all across the world, and again, would just love to see that continue to improve. And while I can't really recommend you going to Ravelry after this video, if you do like crochet and knit patterns, then guess what? I designed some and I have some, and you can go to my website and look at them and buy them. And you shouldn't have any problems scrolling around on my site, which is great. As always, let me know if there's anything I missed, although in this case I have definitely intentionally left out some things because the video is very long, but let me know if you have any insight about any of these things. Let me know if you were there when the redesign happened, if you have any personal experiences with any of this stuff. I would be super interested to hear what you have to say. I also love getting emails from people, so if you want to send me an email with further thoughts on this, then more than you want to put in a YouTube comment, then you can send an email to emmainthemoment.channel@gmail.com. You can also send me video suggestions there. I read through all of those even if I don't respond to them, so keep sending them. I really like getting those. I love talking about fiber arts drama, especially because I am so involved in the community, but I have also been branching out into talking about some other arts and crafts related drama as well, like the feud between Anish Kapoor and Stuart Semple over The World's Blackest Black. So stay tuned for those. Keep watching, subscribe if you want to see more videos, all that fun stuff. Like the video if you liked it. If you got this far, like the video, subscribe, follow me other places if you want, and that's all. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Another big thank you to Scentbird for sponsoring this video. Don't forget to click the link in my description or use code INTHEMOMENT for 55% off your first month at Scentbird. Okay, bye!